Welcome back to Old Guy REI. Mikey and I are back with you to discuss our last Wednesday accountability Zoom call and go over the highlights. I think we had another great meeting. Mikey, what did you think about it?
So there was some drama in the beginning. There was a power outage, and we were telling the group, we don't know if this is gonna be able to commence, but somehow magically you're able to get things fired up, and half an hour, even though half an hour late, it was able to get going.
Yeah, and quite a few people jumped in, and we still went for, I think, 2.5 hours. So that was great. Uh, we started out the meeting talking about someone reaching out to me through one of the videos asking about a situation they're going through with a roofer being a roof being replaced at one of their properties. And I think the roof was about 2/3 of the way done, and they weren't happy with the work that was being done, the quality of the work, and they were asking for suggestions. And here in California, there's a couple of ways you might tackle that kind of an issue. One being contacting the contractor's state license board, and sometimes they'll assign like a mediator to you to help you work through the issue. That's one thing. And then the other thing that's helped us in the past was if you need to go further and you need an attorney, then here in near we where we live in Santa Cruz, there's a lawyer referral service where you give a small donation, usually it's around $50, and they check in with you to see what your issue is, what do you need help with, and then they'll put you in contact with an attorney in that field. And because you've given a donation, they will give you about a half-hour consultation call, and you can ask all the questions that you have and get a little bit of advice and see what your path might be going forward. But a couple of the people in the group were just throwing out ideas, and one of them was wondering, like, what if the customer was just really, really picky and didn't know what they were looking at? And I guess that could be true. We've had some people also in the past that have been really picky about some certain things. We've always tried to, you know, do it the way they wanted it done. I wouldn't do that if it wasn't correct, but if they wanted a certain look or something like that, then we try to accommodate that. Have you ever had any issues getting work done on your places?
The timing is probably the biggest thing for me. Just making sure I'm checking in with them, saying, how's the timeline looking? As far as the work is going, we've looked over some of the work that was done. I've been happy with it, but I think the timing is just, and also weather too, especially if it's exterior work. I've had the hardest time getting chimney work done when it's raining, and it's really hard to predict, when's a good time to actually do work on exterior.
Yeah, the weather is a big factor. We're both in areas where they have more harsh winters. And that's been a thought of ours, when we're buying, not to buy in the wintertime or just before the wintertime, because that really has slowed projects down, especially on the exterior part of it. So we hope that that suggestion helped our friend. A lot of, like I said, a lot of people still made it to the meeting, and there was some talk about some, speaking of work, different products we use when we're painting and things like that. Some people had some great suggestions about exterior sealants that they use. Uh, and I was surprised to hear that they were products that I use also, even though they're in the Midwest. Uh, and we talked about different qualities of paints, things like that. And some people have a great experience. A lot of people seem to not like Home Depot, for example, but I like their paint. And we talked about there being different grades or qualities of paints. So if you buy the cheap stuff, obviously it doesn't matter what brand you're using, it's going to be probably watery and need several coats, things like that. And if you pay a little bit more, like you get what you pay for typically. So I use Home Depot. We use Sherwin Williams. We used to use Kelly Moore, but they closed down last year, so that's not available to us anymore. Uh, Benjamin Moore is a really great product, but it's super expensive. Usually, if the client wants to use that, we'll make sure they're okay once they realize how expensive it is and let them make the choice.
And that was a good suggestion by the investor saying, you could check with your contractors because maybe they can get a contractor rate on that style of paint if it's Benjamin Moore. So maybe you could look into that too.
Yeah, I think that's someplace, I mean, people think that that's a little bit odd, but I don't upcharge for materials and stuff. And if a customer wants to use our discount in any places that we get one, we always offer that to them too.
Wow.
But then, I guess you kind of have to keep that in perspective. If they're going to want the cheaper or to get a discount through us, then typically I will ask them to go pick up the paint because, you know, the travel time is included in that too. So if we get a break on the paint, it helps pay for our time or gas or whatever to go pick up the materials. So most of the time they understand that.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Uh, One of the people that joined was talking about the fact that they had discovered a leak in one of their duplexes. It's an up-down duplex, and that they found that the tub was leaking upstairs, and they were asking for some guidance on that, where they should start. And I think we talked about Dion's experience because he had a similar issue, and they were able to cut the ceiling open downstairs to see the drain and everything for the tub upstairs. And they were able to repair it because it was the tub drain leaking. And then I think they just put in, instead of patching the sheetrock again, they put a plywood door. That way they could inspect it periodically and make sure it was staying dry. So that was a good example.
Yeah, that was good suggestions with looking at the overflow and the trap. And I don't really understand too much of that language, but it's good to
Yeah.
kind of hear the different scenarios you could look at. And even when they're talking about the caulking for the Quad Pro Max, that was another great information too.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I use at Home Depot, and it's a great exterior sealant for doors and windows. It's a polyurethane product. So you have to be a little careful if you get it on your hands. Usually you need to clean them up with paint thinner first to get it all off, but it seals really great and it is paintable. That's a nice part about it.
Yeah, and that cases you could buy cases on Amazon as well.
Yeah, and get a better price. I know that was a good tip. I've never
Yeah.
tried that, but I probably will. Some of the guys were talking about, I think Sam is planning on adding a bedroom and a bathroom to the property he just closed on. And he was asking when is a good idea to call in a general contractor, or if you can try to act as your own GC and manage subs and things like that. And I think because he was saying his property is only about 30 minutes away, and you can do it easily from that distance, but it helps if you know like the steps involved. What do you do first? Painting or flooring or tile work and roofing and all those different things. And you want to be able to know when to schedule the different subs. That way people aren't trying to work over others and getting upset because, you know, the electrician's cutting holes in the drywall after the guy just hung all the sheetrock and things like that. So I know you and I have property management on our properties, so we don't typically have to do any of that scheduling. You're going through a turnover right now. Uh, have they been taking care of that in a timely manner?
The timing has been pushed later than I had thought. So it's just me kind of being in constant communication with them, just trying to get updates, making sure I'm getting replies back. And that's the biggest thing, is even in my other kind of jobs that I've done with them, it's been the timing is whether rain or whether, you know, their schedule.
Mhm. Yeah, our property manager in St. Louis seems really, really busy. So they've been open to us actually finding other contractors and having other contractors come in and do some of the repair work because it'll be done quicker. And it admittedly, they even tell me it might be a little bit less expensive because when they schedule a project, they add 12% on top, like a general contractor might, right? Because they have to be there to open up for the contractor to get in or take pictures after they're done, things like that. But you're right, you need to stay on top of them. I mentioned earlier that I used to just let things go and think they would take care of themselves. And if you do that, it's going to take a lot longer for things to get done.
Yeah, it's funny because you don't want to micromanage, but you also want to stay on top of things. And I know it's a fine line, but I've had to dance that fine line, and I think I have it under control. But yeah, in the beginning, I didn't know when to check in or if I'm bugging them too much, but it's pretty important. So it's something you want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think after they work with you for a while, they'll understand how you are and they'll understand that you're not being like too picky or micromanaging, but you do want to be kept in the loop, especially if there's going to be a delay for some reason. That's always nice to know. And you had talked before about your concern of placing a tenant in the winter months, and if they don't finish soon, you'll be heading into that time frame.
And that's why I always try to mention that, hey, the winter's coming, the winter's coming. How's our timeline looking? Because it is pretty important.
Yeah, and we're looking for a couple of updates on the next meeting because, like, one of our friends in Atlanta was going, he had started an eviction on some tenants that he inherited on his latest purchase, and they had set up. It sounded like it was kind of an informal payment plan. So on Wednesday afternoon, he was expecting the first payment. So we're interested to see how that's working out. Make sure that they're holding up their end of the bargain.
But it sounds like there's been really good progress because once the sheriff got involved, then it's like
Yeah,
your communication gets way better all of a sudden. So
yeah.
that's really good to hear.
He did mention, and he was kind of joking. He didn't know if it had an effect, but he said the other tenant paid his part 2 days early or something like that once they saw the sheriff roll up. So they know he means business, and I guess that's a good way to get started.
And I know for the GC, Matt had mentioned I guess your local and state laws matter. I know some you have I know this kind of there's been differences is that between states?
Yeah, I guess in his area there's more of a difference. Like where we're at, where we live, we're in a county area, and a few miles away. So we're in Watsonville. It's Santa Cruz County. But if we go like 5 miles towards the ocean, it's Watsonville City. So when you're pulling a permit, you just go to whichever jurisdiction your address is in. And then when you go into Santa Cruz, there's Santa Cruz City. So there's like three different jurisdictions right where we're at, and they all have different rules. Last year or 2 years ago, we did a project a few miles away in Scotts Valley, and their permit fees were astronomical compared to what we've been used to. And I made the mistake of going off of our last project in Santa Cruz. The permit cost us around 1,500, and the same type of job in Scotts Valley was $8,000 for the permits. So that was kind of hard for me to tell the homeowner we had to cough up another, $6,000, but we had to do it. So it's good to check with each one, depending on the project that you're doing to
Yeah.
find out what the fees.
Yeah, because I think from what I recall, I remember Matt said he could GC himself, but I guess if in a different state, you would have to hire a licensed GC depending on the laws.
Yeah, sometimes depending where you're at, they don't let the homeowner work on the property. Yeah, I don't find that too often, or I haven't heard of it too often, but I guess it's something in his area. Because yeah, he's in Massachusetts, right? Yeah, and the same investor that was talking about going through eviction right now, had also mentioned that he got notice from his insurance company that they were planning on terminating his policy because of some trees that were, one tree was leaning or hanging over the roof line, and they sent him pictures of what he had to correct or they were going to cancel the policy. And it was just ironic that that day we had gotten the same thing on our primary. Our insurance company wants to cancel us because of a couple of issues here. And they are going to cancel us. It wasn't a fix this or we will cancel you. It's we're going to cancel you and then you can reapply for insurance. And when we reapply, they said we might be required to have a $10,000 deductible, which maybe it's not a bad thing because I think that should lower our rates a little bit. At least I would hope so. So we're already working on those corrections for the insurance company. We'll see what they come back with, and we'll be able to let everybody know how that worked out.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear the quotes, what the quotes number you're getting back.
Yeah, and I was surprised to hear because the other investor is in Georgia, and we always talk about how bad California is, and I would expect this in California, but I didn't. I was surprised to hear it happening in Georgia as well, but I guess it's all over. We had another friend that was talking about the fact that she started investing in LA. She lives in LA County, but it was pretty expensive, and she has a couple of properties. One's in Bakersfield, I believe, and the other was in Lake Havasu. And she was having questions about setting her rents because she wasn't cash flowing positively very much on the properties. And we talked about a few different things that we've done, like um, double checking rent comps in the area just to make sure she was accurate on what she was looking for or getting. And then things like adjusting your insurance with larger deductibles or doing an all cash value or actual cash value policy. I know we've talked about that weeks ago, but changing to an actual cash value policy, even if it's just for a year, could save you some money and help you get through the year. And then you can go back to a full replacement policy if you want to. But with a full replacement policy, we found that we were paying double. Our policy was double. So we're trying that on a few of our properties right now. And we'll see how that goes. And then later on, if we are able to raise rents next year, we might be able then to reincorporate the full replacement policy.
Yeah, and Zuber just had that video with Steadily, and I've heard other investors like using Steadily as well. So it is kind of cool just to see another provider for insurances, especially that's tailored for investors. I've reached out to them. They send a quote back really fast. And maybe if you don't really connect with the one agent, you can reach out again, then you can get connected with another agent. And maybe the quote will even look different. At least that's what I've experienced on the same property. So you could try experiment with that. But their turnaround times are efficient.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a good experience with it. Mine was a little bit different because I reached out to them also on our Gary property, and I've been getting sent to a different agent. Like now I'm on my third agent, and they said
Yeah.
someone will get back to me. So my experience wasn't that great. And I think we'll all be reporting back to Zuber because he needs to know, what everybody's experience is like. But I think I'm hearing more people are experiencing like you did. They're getting quotes back really quick, and they're happy with that.
Yeah, and when I kind of compared everything, they were still about maybe a couple hundred over travelers. So I just stuck with travelers.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. And Chris had mentioned USAA. He's really happy with USAA if you can qualify that through someone who's been in the military before, or if you're in the military. He said they really treat their customers really well. And we're with on our primary, we're with farmers, and in the Midwest in St. Louis, we're with shelter insurance. And I know shelter insurance is in about 8 different states. I think you actually put that information in one of our meetings. They're in Indiana and a few other Midwest states, so that's good to know. But it's a bummer that they're not all across the US because they have really good rates. We also got to congratulate one of the members, David, who he was in our meeting the week before looking for his first property, and this week he was under contract. So that was really great to hear. And he had connected with some people that were attending the Sunday accountability meeting too. And Brandon and a few other people gave him suggestions for lenders, I believe it was. So that was good to hear that he got under contract.
And I'm hearing the shirts more. He picked up an old guy REI shirt. He
That's
got that
right.
in the mail. He was wearing that throughout the festival he was at, but I'm seeing more and more people wearing the shirt, especially for Jared's meeting as well. So yeah, good seeing the shirt circulating around the different type of meetings.
Yeah, that's good to see. I think we'll put the link in on this video as well. We seem to be getting a couple new orders each week, getting us closer to our goal. So thanks for wearing yours and advertising. That's great.
Of course. And it's great to see Zuber wearing it as well
Yeah,
in
like you said, he
with Three
wears them quite
Amigos,
often.
Three Amigos Daily Financial News. Good seeing
We
that.
yeah, we just have to get those other amigos to get their orders in.
Yeah, come on, please, please.
And Lars was asking a question about he's been looking at a property. Is it in Iowa?
Idaho,
No, it's somewhere towards the East Coast, but
Delaware.
oh, Delaware, there you go.
Yeah,
And he was asking about if he should find a contractor that would do the walkthrough with his agent because he got to see the property while he was there and noticed a couple of weird things like um, in the bathroom floor, he thought there might be some issues with water damage, and even in one or two of the rooms on the walls, it looked like mildew or something. And I was telling him as a contractor myself, if someone asked me to walk through a property with an agent, I would probably have no problem doing it, but it would be nice if he offered to pay the contractor for his time, because at least with us, we're busy every day. So if we go to look at a property with an agent, we would probably be pulling ourselves off of one of our jobs for a few hours. So just to compensate the contractor for that would be nice. And that way he could tell the contractor specifically what he saw and ask him to check those spots out, uh, give him a little bit better look. And that way he was trying to figure out what his cost would be to rehab the property, and he needed a little bit more information on those areas.
So in that example, what would you kind of ballpark estimate your charges would be? If would you kind of say maybe 2, 3 hours or
Yeah, I think if somebody asked me, I would think about 250 for the visit would be appropriate because I know other contractors probably charge more than I do, but I think they they're usually around 90 to $100 an hour for something like that. So you figure if he spends 2 or 3 hours, 250 is worth it if it's not really out of his way as far as travel time and stuff. So yeah, I think that would be a fair offer.
okay. And that would come with, would it be more of a report style or is that like a phone call just kind of going over bullet points on the property?
Yeah, I think probably it would be something more informal. He would have to pay more if he wanted more of an in-depth report. And if
Yeah.
he's going to do that, he might as well just get a home inspection, right? Because he can also ask the home inspector or say, "Hey, I noticed this in the bathroom, and I'm wondering if you could just put a really close eye on that. Let me know what you think." a home inspection is a pretty detailed report. But if he already has specific concerns, I think he could share those with a home inspector and get maybe a little bit more detail that way. But if he's going to pay a regular contractor and ask for that kind of detail, it probably would be more than a regular home inspector would charge.
I see. Okay.
And one of our other friends up in Washington was turning one of her units, and she was asking about if she should replace a tub surround in her property. Um, and also she might refinish the tub because it's kind of an old 70s color yellow. So she might refinish the tub and then just replace the surround. There's like a three-piece kit you can buy at Home Depot. They're pretty inexpensive, probably $300 to $400, and they just glue to the walls around the tub if you have sheetrock already. And she also had a like a wheelchair ramp out in the front, and she was wanting to replace the indoor outdoor carpet. So we were able to talk about that and give her some suggestions. We talked after the meeting as well because she sent some pictures. And I think maybe this coming week she'll be able to give us an update on what she decided to do. Because she did mention she got some prices, and I thought they were a little bit high, but she's in Washington, so I don't really know what the rates are there. And she also didn't really know what kind of a contractor to call, if it should be a general contractor, but I suggested her looking through the Better Business website because they have a bunch of A rated, they go by rating, but look for some A rated businesses that just do bathroom remodeling. And even though you're not doing the whole bathroom, they would they would know how to change the wall kit and then seal everything up properly and stuff like that. So might be reasonably priced.
And maybe when you move over to Washington, you'll be the guy.
Cynthia was listening to that and she was saying that, maybe we should just buy a mobile home and or a motor home and travel and help people with their projects and we could live that way.
Totally. I could totally imagine that.
Yeah, it would be fun. But I don't know. I don't want to get yelled at for being too high priced. And I have to move to the next town really quickly. So we had a lot of good topics again this week. I'm looking forward to next week to see what decisions a couple of people made. Like if they got the payments through the eviction, and if she finds a contractor, and um, to see if the investor with the tub leak found out where it was actually leaking. He was considering remodeling the bathroom anyway, but it's quite an expense because I don't think he would have done it himself. He would have had to hire somebody to do it. And bathrooms are a little costly depending on your finishes. If you're doing LVP or tile, there's a big difference. If you're putting in a wall kit or if you're tiling the walls, obviously that's a lot more labor intensive for tile. So there's some decisions to be made there.
And it was also interesting, you're talking about measuring kitchen cabinets and that Home Depot doesn't do measurements anymore. And then they also have I think Sam had talked about this too, where they even refer contractors now. And then there was also the talk about the lumber liquidators. And I didn't even realize, but an investor said they have good butcher block available, but also that they're downsizing or closing
Yeah, I think
certain.
Cynthia was saying that they're restructuring. Somebody in the meeting said they were closing, but we're not sure if that's the case. They're restructuring and they're probably going to close some stores, but they're having some pretty good prices, like Sam was saying. And I didn't know they carried butcher block either. I've never been to a lumber liquidators myself. We Most of the stuff we use is either through Home Depot or some of our other local flooring companies. We use a lot of LVP, um, and Yeah, Home Depot back in the day, they used to come out and measure your kitchen for you, but now they don't. So you have to be pretty accurate when you're measuring. So they don't even double check. They draw it to your dimensions and then you order the cabinets and that's what you got. So hopefully
And
you're good.
you even had that story where I guess the measurements were incorrect, so you had to make adjustments on the job. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was a weird one. So that's one reason I don't like this customer called me to install the cabinets that they ordered. And before the cabinets even came, they have a drawing, right? Home Depot supplies a drawing with the dimensions. So I was just double checking dimensions and I noticed it was a U-shaped kitchen and the sink wall was his measurement was too big. So the cabinets, when they came, what we had to do was we had to actually install the base cabinets. We had to strip all the sheetrock off the framing so the cabinets would fit. So the cabinets were actually tucked into the sheetrock. And I guess we're lucky we were able to do it because you couldn't notice it after everything was done. Once the countertops were on and everything, I told him you won't notice it. It's just that's the only way the cabinets were going to fit. We couldn't shrink them. So that's one reason that I don't like to do a job like that. I like to be involved in even though I'm responsible for the measurements and I know how everything's supposed to work, but when you get thrown in the middle of it, sometimes it's hard to do because the designer has different ideas too, and they'll put something in a different place than I think it should have gone or something like that. Or the homeowner comes up with a crazy idea and puts a cabinet in a weird place or you never know. But yeah, that was a weird one, but they were super happy that we were able to do it, and it looked really pretty when we finished.
And there's also talk about Matt's gotta mention Matt's kitchen cabinets where if you sign up for his course and following the boot camp, once you're in the boot camp, you have access to his kitchen cabinets where you can get a quote and you just supply the measurements and then they ship them out to you.
Yeah, the quality is really good. Like I was saying, I got to see the quality in Dion's kitchen when I was up in Washington. Um, they're very nice cabinets. And Chris in Philadelphia,
Mhm.
yeah, he's ordered a couple of kitchens through there, and he's been super happy with them. But they did again. He had a crazy story about the doorways in his unit were too small and they couldn't fit a Lazy Susan cabinet through the doorway. So his contractor actually had to cut the cabinet apart and
Oh,
then put it back together once they got it in the kitchen. He said it looked really nice after the fact, but that's just something to think about to make sure your doorways are wide enough for everything that you order. So yeah, lots of great stuff. I think well, I always look forward to the calls, but we'll look forward to seeing you again next week to go over the highlights.
sounds great. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again for being here.
Sure.